The notification came through at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I know the exact time because I had just finished checking on my daughter, Zoe, who was running a slight fever. I had tucked her blanket around her little body, kissed her forehead, and picked up my phone to set an alarm for her next dose of medicine. That's when I saw it, 73 unread messages from an unknown number. 73. I remember thinking it must be spam, some kind of glitch. But something in my chest tightened, the way it does when your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Before we get into this story, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I opened the first message. My husband, Derek, was lying in a bed I didn't recognize, his arm wrapped around a woman with long braids and skin that glowed like honey in the dim light. His face, the face I had kissed goodbye that morning, the face I had loved for 11 years, was pressed against her neck. The second photo was worse. And the third. By the 15th, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely scroll. By the 30th, I had slid down the hallway wall and was sitting on the cold hardwood floor outside my daughter's room, my mouth open in a silent scream I couldn't release because I didn't want to wake her. By the 70th photo, I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like my soul had packed its bags and left my body sitting there in the dark. The last message wasn't a photo. It was text. 5 words that would change everything. I'm his next wife. Simone. I sat there until the sun came up. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there, watching the light slowly fill the hallway, listening to my daughter's soft breathing through her cracked door, and feeling my entire world collapse into something unrecognizable. Derek was on a business trip in Atlanta, or so he'd told me. He'd be home in 2 days. 2 days to figure out how to breathe through shattered glass. 2 days to decide who I wanted to be on the other side of this. Let me tell you who I was before that night. My name is Janelle Crawford Williams, and I was the woman who had it all figured out. At least, that's what everyone thought. I was a communications professor at a small university outside of Charlotte, respected by my colleagues, adored by my students. I had a beautiful 4-year-old daughter who had her father's dimples and my stubborn spirit. I had a husband who brought me coffee every morning, who slow danced with me in the kitchen when our song came on, who told me I was beautiful even when I was covered in flour from failed baking attempts. I had a life that looked like a dream from the outside. But here's what nobody tells you about dreams: they can turn into nightmares without you ever waking up. The signs were there. They're always there. I just didn't want to see them. The late nights that started 6 months ago. Work is crazy right now, baby. You know how it is before quarterly reviews. The way he'd take his phone into the bathroom. The slight distance in his kiss, like he was going through the motions of loving me while his heart was somewhere else. I noticed. Of course I noticed. But I talked myself out of it every single time. Because Derek loved me. Derek would never. Derek wasn't that kind of man. Except he was. He was exactly that kind of man. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I didn't tell anyone about the photos. Not my mother, who called me that morning like she always did. Not my best friend, Keisha, who texted me asking if I wanted to grab lunch. I moved through those 2 days like a ghost in my own life, changing diapers and grading papers and cooking dinner, all while 70 photos burned a hole in my phone and my sanity. I did my research, though. That's what I'm good at, research. Within 24 hours, I knew everything about Simone Patterson. 29 years old. Real estate agent at a boutique firm downtown. Single. Active on every social media platform imaginable: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. She posted constantly. Inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and never settling for less. Photos of her expensive brunches, her designer bags, her luxury apartment. She had 12,000 followers who commented heart eyes emojis on her selfies and told her she was goals. Goals. The woman who was sleeping with my husband was goals. But here's what I noticed in my research. Simone wasn't hiding. She wasn't ashamed. In fact, she seemed proud of herself. Her messages to me weren't the actions of a woman who felt guilty, they were the actions of a woman who wanted to stake her claim. She wanted me to know. She wanted me to break. She wanted me to run crying to Derek so she could comfort him and be the good woman who understood him while his crazy wife fell apart. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Derek came home on Thursday evening. I watched from the kitchen window as his car pulled into the driveway, as he stepped out in his perfectly pressed suit, as he grabbed his overnight bag from the trunk. He looked relaxed. Happy, even. Like a man returning from a pleasant vacation, not a man who had just spent 3 days betraying everything we'd built. Baby! He dropped his bag by the door and walked toward me with open arms. I missed you. I let him hug me. I let him kiss my cheek. I let him pick up Zoe and spin her around while she giggled and called him Daddy. I smiled and asked about his trip and listened to him lie with such ease that I wondered how many times he'd done it before. How many business trips had been trips to her apartment? How many late nights at the office had been late nights in her bed? You okay? He asked later that night, studying my face as we got ready for bed. You seem quiet. Just tired, I said. Zoe's been sick. I haven't been sleeping well. He nodded, accepting this explanation without question. Get some rest, baby. I'll handle the morning routine tomorrow. He fell asleep within minutes, his arm draped over me like it always was, his breathing deep and even. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his arm like a chain. This man. This stranger. This liar who slept beside me like he hadn't shattered my entire world. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, I called in a personal day. I dropped Zoe at preschool, kissed her goodbye, and drove downtown to Simone's real estate office. I sat in my car across the street for an hour, watching people come and go, until finally, I saw her. She was even prettier in person, tall and graceful, with a smile that lit up her whole face as she greeted a client. She looked like someone you'd want to be friends with. Someone you'd trust. I didn't approach her. That wasn't my plan. I just needed to see her. I needed to look at the woman who had sent me those photos and understand what kind of person could do something like that. Was she cruel? Was she delusional? Was she so desperate for love that she didn't care whose life she destroyed to get it? I watched her for 3 hours that day. And when I finally drove away, I had the beginning of a plan. You're going to do what? Keisha stared at me across the table at our favorite coffee shop, her latte frozen halfway to her lips. I had told her everything. Every photo. Every message. Every lie Derek had told me over the past 6 months. I watched her face cycle through shock, then rage, then something close to tears. Keisha had been there when Derek and I got married. She'd been there when Zoe was born. She loved him like a brother. And now she was looking at me like she didn't know whether to hug me or help me hide a body. I'm going to make her famous, I repeated. That's what she wants, right? Attention? Recognition? Well, I'm going to give it to her. Janelle. Keisha set down her cup. I understand you're hurt. Lord knows you have every right to be. But this sounds like... Like what? Revenge? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. She sent me 70 photos, Keisha. 70. She told me she was going to be his next wife. She didn't just have an affair with my husband, she wanted to humiliate me. She wanted to break me. And you want me to, what? Take the high road? Pray for her? I want you to think about Zoe, Keisha said softly. Whatever you do, it's going to affect her too. That stopped me. For a moment, the rage that had been burning in my chest flickered, replaced by the image of my daughter's innocent face. She didn't know her father was a liar. She didn't know her family was falling apart. She just knew that Mommy was acting strange and Daddy had been gone a lot lately. I am thinking about Zoe, I said finally. I'm thinking about what kind of woman I want to teach her to be. I'm thinking about whether I want her to grow up watching her mother get walked all over, or whether I want her to see that actions have consequences. Keisha was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. Okay, she said. Tell me the plan. The plan was simple, really. Simone wanted to be seen. She wanted to be known. She craved attention like it was oxygen. So I was going to give her all the attention she could handle. But first, I needed evidence. Real evidence. The photos she'd sent me were damning, but I needed more. I needed to know how long this had been going on, how deep it went, whether Derek was planning to leave me or just enjoying his double life. I needed to understand the full scope of his betrayal before I decided what to do about it. I started with his email. Derek had never been particularly careful with his passwords. He used the same one for everything, a combination of his college football number and our anniversary date. The irony wasn't lost on me. I found them in a folder called Work Projects, which would have been funny if it hadn't made me want to throw up. Hundreds of emails. Thousands of messages. Photos I hadn't seen, messages I wished I'd never read. They'd been together for 8 months. 8 months of lies, of whispered phone calls, of secret hotel rooms. He told her he loved her. He told her I was cold and controlling and that our marriage was basically over. He told her he was going to leave me as soon as he could figure out a way to do it without losing too much money. Money. 11 years of marriage, a child, a life built together, and his primary concern was money. But here's what broke me. Not the photos. Not the lies. It was one message, sent 3 weeks before Simone contacted me. She had asked him when he was going to tell me the truth, and he had responded, "Soon, baby. I just need to get some things in order. You know Janelle, she's the type to try to ruin me if she finds out. I have to be strategic about this." Strategic. He was being strategic. He was planning his exit while sleeping next to me every night, while eating the dinners I cooked, while playing with our daughter in the backyard. He was building a new life with another woman while I was still living in the ruins of the one I thought we shared. I saved everything. Every email, every message, every photo. And then I started making calls. The first call was to my lawyer. Not a divorce attorney, not yet. I called Gwendolyn Price, a media attorney I'd met at a university function years ago. She specialized in defamation, privacy rights, and public relations disasters. She was also brilliant, ruthless, and owed me a favor after I'd helped her daughter get into a communications internship. "Let me make sure I understand," Gwen said after I'd explained everything. "This woman sent you explicit photos of herself and your husband, unsolicited, with a message claiming she was going to replace you. And you want to know what your legal options are?" "I want to know what I can legally do with those photos," I said. "I want to know how much rope she gave me to hang her with." Gwen was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed, a low, appreciative sound. "Janelle, she handed you a loaded weapon and dared you to shoot. By sending those photos without your consent, she gave up any reasonable expectation of privacy regarding them. She initiated contact. She made claims about your husband and your marriage. In North Carolina, that's tortious interference and intentional infliction of emotional distress at minimum. You couldn't ask for a better legal position. So if those photos were to become public somehow, if those photos were shared in the context of, say, a lawsuit against her, or if they were submitted as evidence in divorce proceedings, that would be completely within your rights. If her employer were to learn about her conduct through legitimate channels, well, real estate licenses require a certain standard of moral character. I'm just saying. I smiled for the first time in days. I need you to draw up some paperwork for me. The second call was to my mother. This was harder. Mama had loved Derek almost as much as she loved me. She was going to be devastated, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to handle her pain on top of my own. "Baby?" She answered on the second ring. "Is everything okay? You never call in the middle of the day." I told her. Everything. I told her about the photos, about Simone, about the emails I'd found. I told her about the 8 months of lies and Derek's plans to leave. I told her about the message, "I'm his next wife," and how those words had played on repeat in my head for days. My mother was silent for a long time. Then I heard something I'd only heard a handful of times in my life. She was crying. "Mama? I'm going to kill him." Her voice was steady despite the tears. "I am going to get on a plane, fly to Charlotte, and put that man in the ground." "Mama. Don't you mama me, Janelle. I watched you walk down the aisle to that man. I held your hand when you gave birth to his child. I have treated him like a son for 11 years, and this is how he repays my family? By sneaking around with some little girl who thinks she can send pictures to my daughter? I know, Mama. I know. What do you need?" Her voice shifted from grief to steel. "Tell me what you need, and I'll be there." "I need you to come watch Zoe this weekend," I said. "I have some things I need to handle, and I need to know she's safe and loved while I do it. I'll be on the first flight tomorrow." "And Mama? Don't say anything to Derek when you get here. I haven't confronted him yet, and I need to do it on my own terms." She paused. "You've got a plan, don't you?" "I do." "Good." I could hear the pride in her voice, mixed with the pain. Give that woman exactly what she asked for. The next 2 weeks were the hardest performance of my life. I smiled at Derek over breakfast. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings. I made love to him at night while pretending not to see Simone's face every time I closed my eyes. I was an actress in my own home, playing the role of happy wife while building the case that would end my marriage. Gwen had the lawsuit ready. I wasn't going to file it immediately. I wanted everything in place first. I wanted to make sure that when this all came to light, there would be no question about what kind of woman Simone Patterson really was. I also did something else during those 2 weeks. Something I'm not particularly proud of, but something I don't regret. Simone, as I mentioned, was very active on social media. She posted constantly about her life as a boss babe and high-value woman. She had built an entire brand around being successful, independent, and morally superior. Her followers looked up to her. They trusted her. I created a new account. A burner. And I started following her, liking her posts, commenting supportive messages. I became one of her admirers, indistinguishable from the thousands of others who validated her daily. And then, slowly, I started asking questions in her comments. Innocent questions, but pointed. "Girl, how do you stay so confident? I struggle with trusting men after being cheated on. This is so inspiring. Do you believe in karma? I'm dealing with a situation where someone did me really wrong. Queen behavior. What do you think about women who go after married men? I have a friend who's in that situation." She responded to every comment. She always did. Engagement was her currency. She talked about how women shouldn't blame each other when men cheat. She talked about how a man who can be stolen was never really yours. She talked about how people who get cheated on should look at what they did to push their partners away. Every word was screenshot evidence. Every response was another nail in her coffin. By the end of 2 weeks, I had documented proof of her publicly defending homewreckers while actively being one. It happened on a Friday. Derek had left for work early that morning, though I knew from tracking his location that he was actually on his way to Simone's apartment. I let him go without saying anything. By the time he came home that evening, everything would be different. My mother had taken Zoe to the park. The house was quiet. I had printed out everything, every email, every message, every photo she'd sent me, every screenshot of her social media hypocrisy. It was all arranged neatly on the dining room table, waiting for him. He walked in around 6 p.m., looking relaxed and happy, the way he always looked after seeing her. "Hey, baby. Something smells good. What's for dinner?" "Sit down, Derek." Something in my voice made him stop. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in months. "What's wrong? Is it Zoe? Is your mom okay?" "Zoe is fine. My mother is fine." "Sit down." He sat. Slowly, his eyes moved to the papers on the table, and I watched the color drain from his face as understanding dawned. "Janelle. Don't." My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Don't say my name like that. Don't try to explain. Don't lie to me. How did? Your girlfriend sent them to me." I slid the phone across the table, Simone's message still on the screen. 70 photos. She wanted me to know. She wanted me to hurt. And congratulations, Derek, it worked. I am destroyed. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my family, it's all a lie. He was crying now. Big, heaving sobs that I'd only seen once before, at his father's funeral. "Baby, please. It didn't mean anything. I love you. I love our family. I made a mistake. 8 months is not a mistake, Derek. Planning to leave me is not a mistake. Telling her I was cold and controlling is not a mistake. That's a choice. That's 1,000 choices, made every single day, to betray me while looking me in the eye. I was going to end it," he pleaded. "I swear to God, I was going to end it." She was pressuring me, and I didn't know how to get out. "Oh, she was pressuring you?" I laughed, the sound ugly and sharp. Poor Derek. Trapped by the woman he was voluntarily sleeping with for almost a year. How did you ever survive? What do you want me to say? He was on his knees now, crawling toward me like a wounded animal. Tell me what to say, and I'll say it. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Please, Janelle. Please don't leave me. I can't lose you. I can't lose Zoe. I looked at him. This man I had loved. This man I had built a life with. This man who was now sobbing at my feet, begging me to forgive him for a betrayal that had taken months to execute. "I'm not leaving you, Derek," I said quietly. Hope flickered in his eyes. "You're not?" "No. You're leaving me. Tonight. My mother is taking Zoe to her house for the weekend, and you're going to pack a bag and go. I don't care where. Simone's apartment, a hotel, your brother's couch, I really don't care. But you are not spending another night in this house. Please. And first thing Monday morning, you're going to call a divorce attorney. Because this marriage is over. It was over the moment you touched her, Derek. I just didn't know it yet." He cried harder. He begged more. He made promises I might have believed a year ago but couldn't believe now. And through it all, I felt nothing. The woman who had loved him was gone, burned away by 70 photos and the words, "I'm his next wife."
Derek left that night. He called 17 times over the weekend, sent countless texts, even showed up at my mother's house trying to see Zoe. I told him he could see her once we had a custody agreement in place. I told him that if he showed up at any of my locations again without an appointment, I would have him arrested for harassment. I told him that every action he took from this point forward would be documented and set in our divorce proceedings. He stopped calling after that. But I asked Donnie. Not yet. Simone was still out there, living her life, probably congratulating herself on breaking up my marriage. She thought she won. She thought she was about to get everything she wanted. She had no idea. Monday morning, I filed 2 things. The first was a divorce petition, citing adultery with detailed evidence attached. Under North Carolina law, Derek's infidelity meant I was entitled to alimony, and given the documentation I had, it was going to be substantial. The second was a civil lawsuit against Simone Patterson for intentional infliction of emotional distress, tortious interference with my marriage, and harassment. The lawsuit included every photo she sent me, the same photos she'd been so proud of as exhibits. In North Carolina, several court filings are public record. Anyone who wanted to could pull up the case and see exactly what kind of person Simone Patterson was. But I didn't stop there. I had a friend who worked at the local news station, a reporter who was always looking for compelling human interest stories. I called her that afternoon. I have a story for you, I said. About a woman who tried to destroy my family and bragged about it. About a equally woman who sends explicit photos to wives and calls herself the next wife. And I have documentation for all of it. The story aired 3 days later. They didn't name Simone directly, that would come out in the lawsuit, but they described her behavior in detail. They interviewed me about receiving unsolicited photos from my husband's mistress. They talked about the rise of side chick culture and the women who see married men as challenges to conquer rather than families to destroy. Within hours, people started connecting the dots. Simone's social media presence made it easy. Her followers, who had listened to her preach about being a equally woman, were suddenly looking at her with new eyes. The comments on her past turned from supportive to suspicious. People started asking questions. Someone found the court filing and posted screenshots. By the end of the week, Simone Patterson was exactly what she'd always wanted to be: famous. Not for her real estate success or her inspirational quotes, but for being the woman who sent 70 explicit photos to a wife and declared herself the next wife. Her employer found out. It turns out that real estate boards take moral turpitude clauses very seriously, especially when the evidence is in public court documents. She didn't lose her license not yet, but she was encouraged to find another firm. Her social media accounts went private, then disappeared entirely. The woman who had lived for attention was suddenly drowning in the wrong kind. I wish I could tell you that I felt satisfaction watching her world crumble. I wish I could tell you that seeing her face the consequences of her actions brought me joy. But the truth is more complicated than that. There were moments of grim satisfaction, yes. Moments where I thought, you wanted this. You asked for this. You sent those photos and dared me to do something about it, and now you're learning that actions have consequences. But there were also moments of deep, crushing sadness. A sadness for my marriage, for my daughter's lost family, for the woman I said to be before betrayal turned me into someone capable of orchestrated revenge. The divorce took 6 months. Derek tried to fight it at first, tried to claim that Cheserfer had been emotional abuse toward him because I was distant and unavailable. Cheser knew that argument once they saw my documentation. The final settlement gave me the house, primary custody of Zoe, substantial alimony, and child support. Derek moved to Atlanta close to where the airfare had often taken place, though Simone had long since stopped speaking to him. He sees Zoe every other weekend and 1 month in the summer. Is remarried now to a woman named Patricia who seems nice enough. I hope he treats her better than he treated me. Simone and I ended up settling out of court. Her attorneys advised her to write a trial at all costs. The publicity would only get worse, and my evidence was ironclad. She paid me a significant cement signed an agreement never to contact me or my family again. I don't know where she is now. I don't care. It's been 3 years since that night when 70 photos destroyed me world and rebuilt me into someone new. Zoe is 7 now, smart and fierce and beautiful. She knows that mommy and daddy don't live together anymore, that sometimes families change, that love isn't always forever. I tried to shield her from the ugly details she learned there eventually, but not from me, and not until she's old enough to understand. My mother moved to Charlotte to help with Zoe. We have dinner together every Sunday, and she tells me stories about my father, who died when I was 12, about how he loved her so fiercely that she never doubted him for a moment. That's what you deserve, she tells me. That's what you should never settle for less than. I'm not ready to date again. Maybe I won't be for a long time. The wounds from Derek's betrayal have healed into scars, but scars are tender, and I'm not willing to let anyone touch them yet. I will learn to be lonely toward being lonely, to find joy in my doctor's left and my students' growth and the quiet evenings when I sit on my porch and watch a sunset behind the trees. I will also learn something about revenge. It doesn't heal you. It doesn't make the pain go away. It can feel like justice and sometimes it is justice, but it won't put your broken pieces back together. Only time can do that. Only self-love. Only the slow, painful work of rebuilding your identity when someone has tried to demolish it. Simone wanted to break me. She wanted me to crumble, to fall apart, to clear the way for her to take my place. What she didn't understand is that I was never going to be the kind of woman who let someone else write her story. I am the author of my own life, the director of my own narrative. And while I didn't choose the chapter she forced me into, I chose how it ended. I think about her sometimes, Simone. I wonder if she learned anything from what happened, if losing everything made her reconsider the choices that led her there. I wonder if she's found peace, or if she's still chasing something she never catch. I don't wish her ill anymore, I am past that. But I also don't wish her well. I simply wish her nothing. She is a ghost from a nightmare I woken up from, and I have no space for ghosts in my new life. What I do know is this: every woman who has ever been blindsided by betrayal, who has ever penned a message that shattered her world, who has ever looked at the person she loved and seen a stranger, you are not alone. The pain you're feeling is real, and it's valid, and it will not last forever. You are stronger than you know. You are more vulnerable than anyone who betrayed you could ever understand. And you will survive this. Not because revenge will heal you, it won't. Not because the other woman will get what she deserves, sometimes she will, and sometimes she won't. But because you are not defined by anyone else's choices. You are not a victim of their story. You are the hero of your own, and this chapter, as painful as it is not your ending. It's your beginning. So let me ask you something. If you were in a position, if someone sent you 70 photos and told you they were going to be your husbands next to a photo, you do? Would you take the high road and to outgrow with your dignity? Would you fight back with everything you hit? Would you burn it all down and start fresh from the ashes? There is no wrong answer. There is only your answer, the one that feels true to who you are and who you want to become. That's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just break your heart. It forces you to look at yourself and decide what kind of person you're going to be on the other side. I made my choice. Now I want to know what yours be.